have 2 eggs mayonnaise?
Certainly. Why not? Why not indeed? We're all friends now, eh?
A prawn cocktail.
All in the market together. Old differences forgotten, and no need at all to mention the war.
That is a clip from the brilliant Fawlty Towers. But unlike what John Cleese suggests, we do have to mention the war, the empires, the Free State in the history exam. Sean Delap is the principal with Coláiste Íoságain and a history teacher, and he's with us now. Sean, talk me through the history exam, the format, the layout. What can people expect?
Well, the history exam, the first thing you're going to see is your document study question, and that's worth 20% of the marks. The document study this year, it goes on a two-year cycle. It's based on a topic called dictatorship and democracy, and you have 3 case studies there, and they will ask on one of those case studies. So the case studies would be stand and show trials, which they asked last year. They've never repeated it, but there's no hard and fast rule that they can't. It would be unlikely to come up, but I think for safety reasons, I would still have a look at it. The other 2 case studies are the Nuremberg rallies and the Jarrow March. And what you'll get there is 2 documents. It could be a cartoon document. It could be 2 written documents. And you have 4 sets of questions on the document study question. First set will be based on comprehension. Shane was talking earlier about comprehension. It's simple. Take it from what's in front of you. The answer is on the paper. If you're writing about something else that isn't on the paper, your answer is actually wrong. So it's very, very simple. You just take it from the paper, but just have a double check on it. And that's worth 20 out of 100 marks. Then you have comparison. We've got to compare both documents. And just remember that comparisons, it can be similarities as well as differences. And what I would say when you're comparing the documents, 2 examples from document A, 2 examples from document B. Okay. And that would then, it gets a little bit more difficult. You go on to criticism, where they're looking maybe at the type of document. So they may ask you about the usefulness of a document. For instance, if it's a letter, they may ask you about how useful a letter is, how useful a newspaper article is. And one of the things you can always do with this one as one of your answers, every document you get in the Leaving Cert is dated. So you can simply say this is useful, it's got a date on it. Date allows the student or the historian to place it in its historical context. And you can say then, in this case, and I would say, look at it, where's the document coming in? Start, middle or end of the case study, and that'll tell you an awful lot about the mood of it.
Yeah.
You know, and then your last part of the question is called contextualization, and that is a 40 marker. It's a mini essay. Yeah. And very, very pointed questions there. Just be careful with them. They're usually looking for something specific, causes and consequences particularly. So don't be padding it out with an awful lot of background information. Get stuck into it. Now, apart from that, you have 3 essay type questions to do. And before COVID times, you would have to take 1 essay from each of 3 different topics. Now you're allowed to double up on one of them. So you could do 2 questions from a topic in Irish history and 1 from a topic in European history. Or you could still go for the old way and do 1 question from each of 3 topics. So there's a tendency there maybe to cut an entire topic out and go for broke in one of them. I wouldn't, I suppose at this stage, if you haven't started the last topic, you're going to have to go down that road. But my advice generally would be to study all 3 topics, and that'll give you a much better choice in the Leaving Cert. It's rare, you know, when you go in, and never go in expecting the perfect paper that you're going to win. You're going to look at every section and say, geez, that's a great paper. I can do everything on that. Usually it'll be something a little bit difficult. And if you go in with that attitude, you won't be disappointed. But you actually can avoid it now, because you can avoid that different section by doubling up in a section maybe that's easier.
Looking at the history paper, the questions, there's great choice there, and the questions seem very open-ended. So I'm just wondering, in order to do the best with the marking scheme, how long should you write, and what are the examiners looking for in your answer? Yeah,
well, the examiners, the essays really, I would say there's 3 things really. When you get an essay, there's 3 things you've got to look for here. And first of all would be the dates. And your essays are marked, by the way, 60 out of 100, 60 on relevant information, not background information, and 40 on the way you analyse the question. So it's not a matter of just regurgitating facts. You do need to be able to analyse. So break down the question just for a minute before you start. So look at the dates and stick with them. You will get a maximum of 12 marks out of 60 for background information, but that's it. And if you continue on after the date, you know, your 12 marks is possibly used up already. You're getting nothing from it from that point onwards. Also watch out, some of the questions will have dates written, others will have dates implied. It could be something like the there was a question one year as De Valera as a leader. And everyone took that as that's De Valera from 1932 onwards. But no, De Valera was one of the leaders in the 1916 Rising.
Very true.
He was also a leader of Sinn Féin. So just the question might be a little bit more generous than you realise. You know, and there was another question a number of years ago on where people went badly astray. It was quite a few years ago. Mussolini is a leader of Italy. And I think something like 1/3 of all candidates that answered that question wrote an awful lot about his rise to power. But the hint was leader, and that was 1922.
Okay.
You know, and that was your starting point. And anything before 1922, that's background information, and you're stuck to 12 marks. Now, the second thing you need to look at then is how many parts are in a question. And quite often, a lot of the questions in the Leaving Cert would be two-part. It could be how successful was the Cumann Gael government at dealing with law and order and external affairs. So you've clearly two parts of that question. And everyone automatically thinks that you need to divide your points equally, which you don't need to do.
Okay.
But you do need to address the question, both parts, somewhere along the line. So if you were saying to yourself, I would have loved if that question was based on law and order, I could really go to town on it. I don't know much about external affairs. You're still okay to do it. As long as you put in a paragraph, as long as you put in 1 point on external affairs, you're fine. If you ignore it, you will get a maximum out of 50 out of 60 for your points and a maximum of 21 out of 40 for analysis. So, but all it takes is just a few sentences. Yeah. And, you know, you can still score very highly. There's not a lot of questions too with an and or, and they sometimes throw pupils and they don't seem to like them. I think they're very generous. It's asking you to maybe write about, you know, Terence O'Neill and or Brian Faulkner. Now, you could do most of your essay on Terence O'Neill, but you feel you're a little bit short. Throw 1 or 2 points in on Brian Faulkner. It doesn't need to be half and half. You can ignore him completely. You can have it half and half. You can have it 3/4, 1/4. You can do it whatever way you want. You know, and they're very, very... So look at the generosity in some of the questions, the inbuilt choices, and take them. The last thing you need to look at when doing essays is to look out for keywords. And they'll give you a hint to really where you should be moving in the essay. Keywords would be something like, what were the causes and consequences of, say, the Jarrow March or something. So they're not looking for the story there. They're looking for what caused it. And then they're looking for the consequences.
Okay.
And again, that would be like a 2-part question where you wouldn't necessarily need to do it half and half. You know, if you were running out of time and you have a lot of causes, just stop yourself for a second to get one consequence in. And that's all you got to do. Yeah. But so remember, dates, parts and keywords, that's what you got to look at and break your essay down.
Analyse what the question is rather than just saying something.
Yeah, there's 40% of the marks for every essay. They're awarded for your ability to analyse the question. And
what length are we looking for here in terms of
length? I'd say that's enough. It's hard to know. To see, it's lengthwise, I'd say average handwriting about 4 pages. Okay. But what I would say as well is that every point you make is marked on a scale of 0 to 12. And if you're a slow writer, and some of them are, you're probably better off picking a question that's got ones on society and economy that would have a lot of statistical information in them because they pick up the points very quickly. You look at a paragraph and it's full of statistics and, you know, really solid information, and that's just shouting out, give me marks.
Yeah.
And for the slow student, they can do much, much better on them. Whereas you could get maybe another question where you'd be analysing the Anglo-Irish Treaty. And that's more of a sort of a discussion question you'll have to draw out. So it's really horses for courses in a way, you know. But I would always suggest if students are a little bit slow at writing and have a tendency not to finish the paper, to try and go for those questions where you've big hitting facts and figures that you can stick into the paragraph. Your marks will tot up a lot quicker if you do that.
Okay. And then section 3 is about Europe. What is it that students like about this exam, and what's your suggestion on how to approach it?
Well, the section 2 would be Irish and 3 would be Europe. You could actually ignore one of those sections altogether by doubling up now, you know. You could do take 2 Irish sections. Yeah. I wouldn't recommend not studying one of them, as I said at the start. The other thing I would say is look at the very positives here. You've got a research topic that has to go in. Most of them should have this done now. It has to be sent in by the 2nd of May. So that's the Friday after return from their Easter holidays. The average mark on that over the last number of years has been somewhere between 89 and 91%. They do very, very well in it. And a lot of students will actually get the 100% in it. And, you know, that will cover up for any little mistakes you've made on the time. The other thing that students would ask, if you're running out of time in the Leaving Cert, what should you do? Should you write bullet points? Wouldn't fully recommend bullet points. I would recommend write a point and write 2 sentences on it. Because remember, you're getting marks for information and you're getting marks for analysis. If you're just simply listing bullet points, you're going to get nothing really for the analysis. And I would say just pick a point, 2 sentences, pick another one, 2 sentences until the examiner pulls the paper from under you. And, you know, you will limit the damage in that way.
And then, you know, history, it's a big syllabus.
It is.
You know, we're getting closer and closer to the Leaving Cert. How should students organise their revision over the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, there's one key document that you need, and that's your past exam papers. And, you know, if you're going through your past exam papers and you say, well, you know, that one there in 2004, yeah, I could handle that. I could handle the 2005 to 2007, 2008. So you need to look at it a little bit more. And once you feel, as you're going back through, you know, it's not, even if the papers aren't particularly generous, you can cover something in every section. You're ready. You know, and it's a great way to give yourself a little boost. And if you look back on it, you'll discover that a lot of the questions are coming up in a very, very similar fashion. And one thing to watch out for, there is a little tendency in this course that came in 2006 to repeat a small amount of questions. So just keep an eye out for that one, you know.
Nice tip there. Thanks so much for that, Sean.